Good morning and welcome to a very, very special edition of the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known on this December 22nd, 2021. The Black Press's models itself after our founders. We wish to plead our own cause. Today, we bring you something that you will only be able to get here at the Black Press of America. Two of our journalists returned yesterday from the Sudan, and this morning, Barrington Salmon, NMPA writer, and attorney Abdul Latif, who represents the African Communications Agency, joins us to bring us insight from their trip to the Sudan. They was 5 days on the ground in that African nation, and the National Newspaper Publishers Association will be doing these trips to other places in Africa as the days and weeks come, as the months go by as well. But today we bring you dispatches from the Sudan. We welcome Barrington Salmon and attorney Latif. Good morning, guys.
Good morning. How are you?
Good to see you, Barrington. Good to see you, Abdul Latif, attorney Abdul Latif. Look, first, before we get into it, let's give a tease. We have a little video as to your experience in the Sudan. Let's check it out.
A team from the African Communications Agency and the National Black Publishers Association spent a week in Khartoum, Sudan. We went to try to find out what is going on the ground and found a situation that is very different from the US national media narrative. Wonderful people, hospitable, friendly, open. Yes, there are problems. Yes, there are issues between those who support the idea of democracy and who seek elections and those who think that what the military is doing is to stable the country. Dealing with US sanctions, dealing with any number of problems that developing countries deal with. From what I saw, dealing with all of these problems and challenges with grace and honor and dignity.
And you have dispatches from the Sudan. Barrington, attorney Latif, tell us, first and foremost, how was the trip? How was the journey? You really were able to see a whole lot. In fact, let's start with you, Barrington, because we saw you sitting in that chair writing at the end of that video there. But there was so much more to it than just that. Tell us about it.
I think the thing that sticks with me most of all is that at the end of the day, no matter where you are in the world, people want the same things. I interviewed 20 people. We talked to many more, and they want safety and security. They want to be able to take care of their children. They want access to education, all of the things that we want. I think one of the things that also stuck with me is that people want to be sovereign. They want to be independent. They want to be able to make their own choices without folks from outside the US, other places, telling them how they need to live and what types of political, economic, social things they need to be doing. As we were talking about before, they were very open, very friendly. We spent a lot of time just hanging. We talked to some tech people, tech gurus. We talked to professors, professors of culture, professor of psychology, Islamic law. We talked to some rappers. We went and spoke to. We went to a basketball practice and spoke to the national coach of the Sudanese team and some of his players. So we tried to capture as broad a cross section of regular people. I think one of the coups for the trip was that we were able to secure an interview with the Vice President of Sudan, and we had asked for that at the beginning of the trip, and on Sunday night they said Monday morning be prepared to go. So we Vice President Daglo. So we went to his home, had a sumptuous breakfast, met with him in his office later in the afternoon, and very, very honest, very, very cordial conversations talking about the reasons why the military stepped in, what are the hopes they have for the country. Like I said, sovereignty, the ability to choose for themselves what direction they Sudanese people take their country. And I think it's also important for our viewers to know that there's a greater realization by Africans of the importance, the strategic importance of the continent. More and more people are understanding that there's no reason why any African on the continent should be poor, because the sheer abundance of natural resources, whether it's wood, whether it's oil, whether it's gold or diamonds or whatever it is, it's all on the continent. And you talk to any tech person and they'll tell you that the majority of the ingredients for cell phones and computers and all of these 21st century tech things, they're found in Africa. So the importance for them is, how do we regain control of our resources so that we can take care of our people and move the continent forward, bring Africa to a place well beyond Europe or Asia. And it's possible because, Stacey, everybody's there. Chinese, Indian, Brazilian, Israeli.
We wouldn't know it, right?
Everybody's there.
We wouldn't know it, right? We wouldn't know it based on what we see being reported in mainstream media. Attorney Latif, the ACA's mission. Why was it important that you guys accompany or go with the Black press to Africa? We're having trouble hearing you right now, Attorney Latif. Okay, we're not picking up your volume, unfortunately. Perhaps we can work on that. And I'll go back to Barrington. Barrington, while we work on Attorney Latif's volume there, you went over and you found a lot of interesting things. But I'm going to ask you, perhaps you've already posed that question. I'm going to ask you the same question I just asked Attorney Latif, and that is, why was it important that the ACA get together with the National Newspaper Publishers Association to go to the Sudan?
My understanding is that both organizations have the same goal. We live in a place and an environment where white people and other people in the media are the ones that basically hold the narrative. Because I'm telling you, I spoke to a friend and he said to me, "Aren't you afraid to go to Sudan? Because I heard the whole place is on fire." Now, yes, Sudan has a chaotic history since gaining independence from the British in 1956. There was a rebel war that led to the formation of South Sudan as a new nation. There have been ongoing problems in Darfur, but Sudan is not on fire. Yes, and it's folks are living their life. They're doing the things that they need to do, and so it is our responsibility to let folks know what's really going on.
Yeah, and Barrington, we saw obviously all these reports about unrest and things like the government being under siege. Even there was a report about the president being under house arrest at one point. But you guys, you said it a little while ago. You went to the vice president's home. You saw for yourself what was really going on. Now, I know that anytime that you're being hosted by anyone, whether it's the Sudan or whether it's the White House, everyone's going to put their best foot forward. But you're an investigative journalist. Did you even smell a hint of trouble in the Sudan as the way it was reported here?
Well, it's not trouble, because here's the deal. We were on the ground on December the 19th, which is the 3rd anniversary of the December Revolution, and there were thousands of people marched in support of the revolution and to honor the memory of the people that were killed when before Bashir, the former president, was deposed. So yes, real tensions, real concerns. I stood in the window of my hotel room overlooking a bridge going across the Nile, and for about 5 or 6 hours on Sunday, I watched the cat and mouse game between security forces and young people who would go to the bridge, put stones and other barriers across the street. The security forces would come up, they'd fire tear gas, disperse the crowd, pick up the rocks, and then the young people would come back and do the same thing. So yes, my understanding is that I think the majority of people want elections. They don't want the military to be, because it's a military civilian government, and the prime minister was under house arrest and was released and restored to his position as prime minister.
And
so
so we do have, I think we have connection now with Attorney Latif. Attorney Latif, so what is the major takeaway from the trip to the Sudan? Okay, we still have, I'm so sorry. We really want to hear from you. We're still having some technical difficulties. We're still going to work on them because we want to hear from Attorney Abdul Latif. Robin Bradford is watching and asking, how can I become a part of the chat? Robin, please ask your question, and we'll be more than happy to relay it to Attorney Latif and to Barrington Salmon, and they'll be happy to answer it and respond right here on the program. Barrington, so you mentioned, you described a lot of normalcy that people don't normally get when we hear about countries in Africa, right? Yeah. You described running into hip hop artists, talking to hip hop artists, basketball team, the national basketball team, and everyday people. We saw in the video, everyday people. Your biggest takeaway, Barrington, when it comes to just the everyday person, let's set the politics aside, let's set the government aside, everyday people. How are they living in the Sudan?
It's hard. The elephant in the room in Sudan is U.S. sanctions. There have been sanctions of one type or another since 1993, and it's shut down everything. Sudanese banks cannot do any business with foreign banks outside. We spoke to 2 tech gurus who said that every time that they want to take exams, they have to go to Ethiopia or to the United Arab Emirates to do tests because Sudan is locked down. Spare parts, they said that because of the lack of spare parts and the ability to replace farming material, to get seeds, to get parts for planes, to get parts for their ships, they had a countrywide rail system that's falling apart because of the sanctions. A young lady who was interpreting for us said that when at some point, and I don't know when exactly, but at some point it was $1 to 3 Sudanese pounds. Mm-hmm. When we were there on Monday, it was $1 to 445 Sudanese pounds. So the cost of food. They said that they have to work through middlemen to get most of their products. So they're paying 3 to 5 to 10 times more to get these things. So for folks who aren't making a whole lot of money, it's hard. We spoke to a farmer. He works the land on a large plot of land outside of Khartoum, outside of central Khartoum. And he said that it's somebody else's land. he doesn't decide what crops to grow. He doesn't decide how much it's going to sell for. He doesn't decide who it's going to be sold to. And he said he has no control. He just gets a monthly stipend, which is not nearly enough to take care of him and his 7 children.
Wow.
And he said if he gets sick, if he dies, they're going to throw his family off the land. And so he in order to make ends meet, I think the term that I heard the most was people saying, we're just trying to make ends meet.
Well, so these sanctions, as you noted, they are few areas of Sudanese life that is not affected by the punishing and crippling wrath of trade and economic sanctions. Several people you interviewed said that, right?
Everybody that I interviewed talked at some point about the impact of sanctions on their everyday life and on the country, the country's ability to move forward.
Do we know the origin of the sanctions? When did it begin? Why did it begin?
In 1990s. Remember, after 9/11, there were always issues because they said that Sudan was a terrorist haven. And so in 93, they started imposing sanctions. After 2001, I don't know if you recall, Osama bin Laden was in Sudan. And so they imposed other, trade and economic sanctions then. So it started in the 1990s, and it was mainly for the associations that the Bashir government had with people that they designated as terrorists. Since 2019, in order to try to force the military to have quote unquote elections, they imposed sanctions again because they want to force them to move towards democracy. So that's what.
And we also understand from your reporting too that the country's transportation system of trains was derailed, affecting the government's ability.
It's done, and because I spoke to the vice president and to at least three other government officials, and they said that the network of railroads allowed them to move food and other essential items around the country. Because Sudan is huge. Until South Sudan broke off as an independent country, Sudan was the largest country in Africa. It is huge, right? And so that the railway system was their way of keeping the country connected. That's gone. I mean, it's so telling when they tell you that we had the vice president said we had a fleet of airplanes. And Sudan Air was noted on the continent, and now they got one plane.
One plane.
One plane and one ship.
Wow. Again, we're talking with Barrington Salmon, an NPA journalist who joined Abdul Latif, the attorney at the ACA, on a trip to the Sudan. They spent 5 days there reporting from the Sudan. And here is, again, attorney Abdul Latif.
We hear you.
We can hear you now.
We hear you. We hear you.
Yes. Can you hear us? Attorney Latif, can you hear us?
I don't hear anything.
We can hear you. So okay. Again, we're gonna have to do this again, folks, and have him back. But Barrington, so did you go there? What? Let me rephrase that. What preconceived notions did you go to the Sudan with?
I don't know that I had any preconceived notions. I just didn't know what I was gonna meet. I know that there were all these stories about just how much turmoil and unrest, and so I expected it to be more to be crazier than it was. Like I said, and I mean, I'm not trying to pretend by any stretch of the imagination that our experiences reflects the entirety of Sudan. But the places that we went, I mean, we got there, we're walking around at all hours of night, no problems, no issues. One young lady said that we were talking to her about what it's like in America. And I asked her, I said, how safe are the women walking around the city? And she said, it's not a problem. She said that when she's walking home, people will stop and ask her where she's going and take her.
Wow.
She said the issue of rape is not an issue.
So they care about their women.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Sudan is a Muslim country. It is fairly conservative. It has more. Women are given more space to move and do things than in some other countries, like Saudi Arabia and those types of things. Because I saw women driving. We spoke to a professor, very accomplished Professor Alam, and she has a PhD. She is like one of the standard bearers. She was dealing with. She said she still has family that disapproves of the fact that she went to school, but she said that she had to stop school like 3 times when she was in primary school because she didn't have the money, and she just fought her way through. So and now a lot of young women are asserting themselves, are pushing into places. We spoke to 4 young women who love basketball and who are playing basketball, but they also said that their families disapprove. They don't get a lot of help and support from the federation, the basketball federation, that type of stuff. But that didn't stop them from pursuing what they love. So it's going through. Sudan is going through a lot of changes. Dr. Alam was saying that the biggest concern that they have is that they don't want undue influences from the West to affect Sudan's children, Sudan's young people, and move them on a path that's going to be detrimental to them and the country as a whole. So there's that struggle and that tension between the modern and traditional. And one of the things that a number of people, particularly older people, talked about was the importance of maintaining tradition. Family is very important. The grandmothers are the center of the family, centers of the community. And until recently, they were telling us that most of the time you would have a grandmother, grandfather, the grandmother's child, and grandchildren all living in the same house.
Wow. So we have, of course, Dr. Chavis has joined us. Attorney Latif, we seem to have his problem fixed. Just a quick overview as we're going to be running short on time, but the ACA accommodates the diplomatic end of these Black American reporters going to various places in Africa that partially fulfills the ACA mission to build bridges between the African diaspora and the motherland. Attorney Latif, we have you now. Your biggest takeaway from the trip to the Sudan? He's shaking his head. He still has a poor connection. We're going to invite you back, Attorney Latif, because we really want to hear from you. Dr. Chavis, we welcome you this morning, of course, as we do every morning. Dr. Chavis, this trip to the Sudan, Barrington Salmon has given us such a great report.
I don't know.
Okay, so he can't hear us, but we can hear him. But Barrington, Dr. Chavis, we've been getting a great report from Barrington on the trip to Sudan, far different than what we see in mainstream media.
Absolutely. That's why the Black press is so important. And we thank Attorney Latif and all those who work to make this trip possible. Barrington, you always do a great job. Thank you for representing us so well in the Sudan. Sudan is a major African nation. It was one of the largest before they partitioned it between the North and the South. And so your direct report is very vital to Black America and to people throughout the diaspora. So on behalf of Karen Carter Richardson, the 230 African American owned newspapers who comprise the NNPA. We really thank you for taking the trip. We thank Brother Latif for getting back when the audio works. But it seems to me that, Stacey, this is a first report of a continuing report that we need to get as we strengthen the ties between journalists and Black America, journalists in Africa, and journalists throughout the diaspora.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think it's safe to say we're going to invite Barrington and Attorney Latif back tomorrow for more. Barrington is going to be writing, for everyone who's listening, he's going to be writing several features on blackpressusa.com about this monumental trip to the Sudan with the ACA. We're going to hear more from Attorney Latif as well, and others in the ACA, and of course, the National Newspaper Publishers Association. Dr. Chavis, I know that our chair, Karen Carter-Richards, has some plans for more trips to Africa. Perhaps you can give us a little preview.
Well, I believe that there's a trip being organized now to Liberia, led by our distinguished chair, Karen Carter-Richards, and we'll be reporting more on that at the Midwinter Conference in January. In just a few weeks, we'll all be in Hollywood, Florida. Yeah,
absolutely. And Barrington, before we let you go today, give us an idea of what we can expect in your reporting coming up in the days and weeks coming, because we're expecting, and based on your own this discussion, we're expecting very, very many reports from you.
Yeah. I'm anticipating at least a dozen or more stories. Interview with the vice president, talking about sanctions, talking about the direction that he and the military civilian council are hoping to take Sudan. The importance of Africa moving further into the 21st century. The young people here, the young people in Sudan and in other parts of the continent who are beginning to realize the need for them to coalesce. We had a number of discussions, both on and off the record, about where Africa stands, what we need to be doing to wrest economic and financial control back to the people. I think one of the most important things that I heard is that Africans generally, Black Africans, are looking to African Americans for guidance, leadership. I spoke to a professor, and he was saying that it should be a human right that every African American, every African in the diaspora get dual citizenship.
Well, Barrington, we're going to stop you there because we are going to run out of time, but I want you to talk about that tomorrow on tomorrow's program. And we want to hear a whole lot more about that. Dr. Chavis, I'm sure you'll be with us and we can have a broader discussion, and hopefully we can have Attorney Latif's connection a whole lot better on tomorrow's program. But please stay tuned, folks, because we're going to be bringing you a whole lot from the motherland, from specifically, in this case, the Sudan. We thank Barrington and we thank Attorney Latif. And remember, the NNPA's, as Dr. Chavis alluded to, the NNPA's Midwinter Training Conference is January 19th to January 22nd. We're going to be at the Diplomat Beach Resort in Hollywood, Florida, where the theme is the publishing industry, advancing the Black press of America, reaffirming, engaging, and empowering. Visit www.nnpa-events.com to register and reserve your hotel rooms. And rest assured, the NNPA is adhering to strict COVID safety procedures, including anyone responsible for dining areas. They will wear gloves, social distancing in all spaces, and mask requirements, and so forth. The NNPA repeatedly and will continue to advocate all necessary safety measures for its staff, freelancers, and all guests. Stay safe, everyone. Join us tomorrow as we bring you more dispatches from the Sudan. Thanks for joining us.